Imagine holding a coin that most people pass over every day, only to discover it could have quietly sold for thousands of dollars. Today, we're talking about a very special 1980 Lincoln penny, one minted with no mint mark. Verified examples of this coin have surfaced in recent years, fetching prices that make collectors sit up and take notice. Now, this isn't about hype or empty promises. It's about understanding what makes certain coins quietly valuable and why a simple 1980 penny could be hiding unexpected financial potential right in your pocket change. The 1980 Lincoln penny was part of an era that many collectors consider modern, yet still full of surprises. Produced at multiple mints across the country, these pennies were primarily copper-plated zinc, following the change from solid copper in 1982. The no mint mark variety simply means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which did not use a letter to indicate origin. This detail seems small, but in the world of numismatics, small details can completely change interest. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. The 1980 no mint mark penny is unusual because certain examples show striking anomalies, like double dies, off-center strikes, or unusually sharp features. These differences are subtle but crucial. Unlike other dates that are abundant in circulation, the no mint mark 1980 has several verified examples that have reached life-changing fatal results for select examples, making it a quiet wealth discovery for those who recognize its potential. When examining this penny, collectors focus on composition and condition. Most 1980 pennies are copper-plated zinc, but a few rare errors include the older copper alloy still circulating from previous years. This difference can completely change interest. Even the tiniest strike variations on the obverse or reverse can dramatically increase desirability among dedicated buyers. High-grade, uncirculated examples are particularly sought after for certification, and these coins often appear in auctions at premium prices. This is where many people get confused. A regular 1980 penny looks identical to a collectible example, even under casual inspection. But collectors are looking for specific features, sharp details, smooth surfaces without post-mint damage, and evidence of certain die varieties. Coins that show wear, scratches, or corrosion will almost always remain in standard value ranges, even if they're technically the no mint mark variety. Knowing the difference is what separates a standard coin from one with hidden financial potential. So, what can you realistically expect? Circulated examples of a 1980 no mint mark penny typically remain worth a few cents above face value. But certified, high-grade coins, especially those with verified errors or exceptional preservation, have been documented selling for hundreds, and in rare cases, even thousands of dollars. Life-changing sale results are uncommon, but they illustrate why patient collectors remain attentive to this date. Here's another point many people overlook. Cleaning or polishing a penny to make it shine almost always reduces value. Handling coins without gloves or storing them improperly can also diminish their appeal to serious collectors. Patience and careful examination are far more valuable than speed. Many quiet wealth discoveries happen when an owner simply checks what they already have, rather than rushing to sell. Some sellers find unexpected income simply by holding on to coins and letting their rarity become recognized over time. Even coins that seem ordinary today can gain attention years later, particularly if certified and verified by numismatic experts. Knowledge, patience, and careful handling are the keys that unlock hidden potential in everyday coins. If you have a 1980 penny without a mint mark, it's worth taking a closer look. Examine it carefully, compare it to verified examples, and consider professional grading if it appears exceptional. And if this sparked your curiosity, check out our other videos on rare Lincoln pennies. You might be sitting on a piece of hidden financial potential without even realizing it. Remember, in numismatics, informed patience always outperforms haste, and sometimes the simplest coins can surprise you the most. We're diving into a 1981 Abraham Lincoln penny, one that comes with a twist. Some rare examples don't carry a mint mark at all. Verified examples have quietly sold for prices that surprised even experienced collectors. While not every 1981 penny is extraordinary, certain details can reveal hidden financial potential that many owners overlook. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for and why patient collectors have turned this modest coin into a quiet wealth discovery. The 1981 Lincoln penny comes from an era when copper-plated zinc coins dominated circulation. Most Americans carried these coins without thinking twice. However, for coin collectors, every detail matters, especially mint marks, composition, and subtle production quirks. This was a transitional period for U.S. coinage, and even small variations can make a world of difference for collectors seeking life-changing sale results for select examples. This is where many people get confused. On the surface, a 1981 penny looks ordinary, but collectors know that the absence of a mint mark or tiny differences in strike quality can significantly increase interest. Coins from this year are often overlooked at face value, which is exactly why some examples quietly reach premium prices at auctions or private sales. The vast majority of 1981 pennies were struck at the Denver Mint and carry a small D on the obverse. But some coins appear without a mint mark, and those are the ones that spark attention. Composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating, these coins also sometimes exhibit subtle errors, double dies, striking shifts, or weak mint marks. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Even a slight misalignment or off-center strike can completely change interest and the potential value. Not every 1981 penny without a mint mark will attract collectors. The key is in the condition and rarity of the error. Circulated coins with scratches, discoloration, or heavyware typically hold only modest collector interest. But coins that are uncirculated, with strong detail and minimal handling, can sometimes sell for prices well above what most people expect. This difference can completely change interest for potential buyers. Realistic expectations are critical here. Circulated 1981 pennies without mint marks usually fall in the single-dollar range at coin shows or online. Uncirculated or certified examples can move into the $50 to $200 range, and rare high-grade specimens have quietly reached even higher amounts in private sales. It's not about instant wealth. It's about understanding hidden financial potential and knowing which coins deserve attention. This is where many people get confused. Cleaning, polishing, or attempting to artificially enhance a coin can destroy value. Even a small scratch from a homemade attempt to shine the penny can drop interest significantly. Collectors also overlook minor variations that may seem insignificant but actually hold the key to life-changing sale results for select examples. Some penny owners discover quiet wealth simply by holding on to a coin until the right buyer comes along. Rare coins often trade at local shows, online auctions, or private collections, places where collectors are willing to pay for the subtle details that most people ignore. Patience and knowledge often matter far more than speed in these transactions. Before you toss your old pennies, take a closer look at those 1981 Lincoln pennies in your collection. Check the mint marks, examine the details, and consider consulting a trusted grading service if you spot an unusual example. And if you want to continue exploring coins with hidden financial potential, check out our next video on rare Lincoln penny varieties. Remember, understanding the details and exercising patience are the real keys to uncovering value. A coin you've probably passed over countless times, yet in the right condition, it could quietly unlock life-changing sale results. Today, we're diving into a coin that's captured the attention of collectors and investors alike. The 1982 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. Verified examples of certain varieties have sold for prices that make even seasoned collectors do a double take. But this isn't about hype. It's about understanding what makes this coin unusual, what to look for, and why a simple detail can completely shift its hidden financial potential. The 1982 penny represents a pivotal year in U.S. coinage. It's the year the U.S. Mint switched much of the penny production from a mostly copper composition to a predominantly zinc core, a change that collectors still track closely today. Coins from this year are fascinating because you can find both copper and zinc examples, sometimes even in the same collection without realizing it. This is where many people get confused, because the visual differences are subtle, yet they can completely change interest for serious collectors. Collectors and buyers have a particular fascination with 1982 pennies because of composition shifts, rare errors, and the no mint mark varieties. While the coin looks ordinary at first glance, certain specimens have quietly achieved remarkable attention at auctions. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: the exact metal content and strike clarity. Those who understand these subtleties often discover hidden financial potential where others only see pocket change. Most 1982 pennies carry either a small D for Denver or no mint mark at all. The no mint mark versions, produced in Philadelphia, come in two primary compositions: copper, with 95% copper and 5% zinc, and the newer zinc-based variety, which is mostly zinc with a thin copper plating. This difference can completely change interest among buyers. On top of that, there are known varieties from this year, including subtle strike errors or double die effects, which collectors quietly value. Understanding these variations is essential because one small detail can push a coin from common to highly sought after. Not every 1982 no-mint mark penny is rare. In fact, most circulated examples sell for only a few cents above face value. But what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary is condition, composition, and error type. Life-changing sale results happen for select examples that are well-preserved, uncirculated, or certified by reputable grading services. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: even tiny scratches, cleaning marks, or where it can drastically reduce a coin's appeal, so careful handling matters more than speed. For typical circulated coins, values range just above face, often 3 to 10 cents. Uncirculated or high-grade specimens can reach several dollars, especially copper varieties in pristine condition. Certified examples with rare strike errors can fetch hundreds, or even occasionally more in specialized auctions. This is where many people get confused, because the coin looks nearly identical to a standard penny, yet the market treats it differently once grading and composition are verified. Many collectors unknowingly diminish the coin's potential by cleaning it, dropping it, or storing it improperly. Even fingerprints can leave marks that turn a potentially high-value specimen into a standard collectible. Patience is key here. Some sellers discover unexpected income by holding coins correctly, checking composition, and having rare examples professionally graded. Quiet wealth discovery often comes from methodical, informed approaches, not quick flips. If you own older pennies, the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln could be hiding financial potential in your pocket change. Take a careful look, compare compositions, and consider consulting a grading expert if you suspect you have a high-grade or rare variety. Knowledge and patience matter far more than speed when it comes to discovering value. And if this piqued your curiosity, check out our video on the 1983 zinc pennies, another year where subtle differences quietly change collector interest. One coin from 1983, with no mint mark, has quietly captured the attention of collectors and investors alike. Verified examples of this penny have sold for prices that seem extraordinary for a coin barely 40 years old. This isn't about hype. It's about understanding the subtle differences that separate a regular penny from a coin that might spark life-changing sale results for select examples that if you own older pennies, or even just a jar full of change, you'll want to pay close attention. Because this is where many people get confused. The 1983 penny is part of the Abraham Lincoln series, which has been in continuous production since 1909. By 1983, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies each year, mostly for circulation, which makes spotting a coin of interest all the more challenging. Despite being relatively modern, The 1983 no-mint mark penny represents a moment in history when coin compositions and minting processes were shifting. It's a coin that seems ordinary, but under careful scrutiny, it can reveal hidden financial potential. So why do collectors still focus on this specific year? One key reason is a very simple, but often overlooked, detail: the absence of a mint mark. Coins without mint marks were produced in Philadelphia, but subtle production errors sometimes occurred, creating varieties that are now quietly sought after. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: slight differences in the alloy, the sharpness of the strike, or even the presence of unusual die marks can completely change interest in a coin. These details can take an ordinary penny and make it a coin that serious buyers notice. The 1983 Lincoln penny was primarily struck in a copper-plated zinc composition, replacing the older, heavier copper pennies of previous decades. The most common example you'll find is heavily circulated, often showing wear and discoloration, but a few examples exist that escaped heavy circulation, preserving crisp details that collectors prize. No mint mark means Philadelphia, but differences in die alignment and composition can create varieties that quietly sell for several $100s at auction, sometimes more for certified examples in top condition. This difference can completely change interest. Even a slight imperfection or an unusually sharp strike can elevate the coin's desirability dramatically. Most 1983 no-mint mark pennies are common, worth only face value to casual holders. However, coins with perfect strike, exceptional luster, or documented varieties enter a completely different category. Life-changing sale results for select examples usually come from coins that collectors classify as uncirculated or MS-65 and above in grading terms. That's where patient sellers sometimes discover unexpected income. Coins sitting in drawers for decades suddenly reveal hidden financial potential. Realistically, a circulated 1983 no-mint mark penny might only be worth a few cents above face value. But certified, pristine coins can range from $20 to several $100s, depending on the grading and rarity. This is where many people get confused. Value isn't always about the year alone. It's the condition, certification, and subtle die characteristics that command attention in the collector market. One common mistake is cleaning or polishing the coin, which dramatically reduces collector interest. Another is selling too quickly, without checking certified marketplaces or auction records. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Even small scratches or discoloration can remove a coin from top value consideration. But coins that remain untouched for decades often surprise their owners with quiet wealth discovery. If you have a jar of older pennies, take the time to carefully check each one. The 1983 no-mint mark Lincoln penny may seem ordinary, but in the right hands and under the right conditions, it carries hidden financial potential. Patience, knowledge, and careful examination matter far more than speed. If you want to continue uncovering secrets about pennies that quietly create wealth for collectors, check out our next video on rare Lincoln penny varieties from the 1980s. Your next unexpected discovery could be just a coin away. The 1984 Lincoln penny, specifically the ones with no mint mark, has quietly captured the attention of collectors. Verified examples have surfaced in private sales, sometimes reaching prices that make even seasoned collectors sit up and take notice. But before you rush to sort through your jars of change, it's important to understand what sets these pennies apart and why patience and knowledge matter far more than speed. Let's start with a little background. The 1984 penny is part of the Lincoln Memorial Series, a design that had been in circulation since 1959. While millions of these pennies were struck, the ones without a mint mark were produced at the Philadelphia Mint. On the surface, it might seem like just another coin from the 1980s, but here's where many people get confused. Collectors aren't just looking at the date. They are carefully examining subtle variations, small differences in composition and condition. Even a seemingly ordinary penny can hold life-changing sale results for select examples. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: the composition. In 1982, the U.S. Mint transitioned from 95% copper to a mostly zinc core with just a thin copper plating. The 1984 no mint mark pennies fall entirely into this newer composition, but certain strike qualities can make an otherwise common coin highly desirable. Another difference can completely change interest: the coin's finish. Coins that retain sharp details on Lincoln's shoulder, the word Liberty, and the date are far more sought after than those worn from circulation. And this is where patient sellers sometimes discover quiet wealth discovery in jars they've overlooked for years. Now, let's talk value ranges. A circulated 1984 no mint mark penny might typically be worth just face value, but certified examples in near perfect condition have been known to sell for hundreds of dollars. It's not common, but the hidden financial potential is real for coins that meet very specific criteria. That a mistake many owners make is assuming that any 1984 penny is equally valuable. Even small scratches, cleaning marks, or uneven coloration can reduce collector interest drastically. This is where many people get confused. They see the date and assume value, missing the finer points that actually drive prices. Another factor collectors quietly watch is die varieties. Slight variations in the way the date or letters were struck can significantly influence interest. On the 1984 penny, look for crispness around Lincoln's profile and the quality of the rim. Coins that retain these subtle details are the ones that have achieved unexpected high-value sales. Even among certified examples, grading can make a huge difference. An MS-65 may command significantly more than an MS-63, simply because collectors know that perfection in these pennies is rare. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: minting errors, though uncommon in this series, can elevate interest even further. Let's break down realistic expectations. Circulated pennies are almost always worth face value or just slightly more to collectors hunting for bulk sets. Uncirculated or graded examples, however, show quiet wealth discovery potential. In private sales and online auctions, coins that meet exacting standards have sometimes fetched life-changing sale results for their owners. But this is where patience is key. Rushing to sell or misidentifying a coin can leave value on the table. Careful research, proper handling, and professional grading are the steps that turn an ordinary 1984 penny into a collectible treasure. Another common trap is cleaning. A shiny penny might look impressive at first glance, but collectors can immediately spot chemical cleaning or abrasives. This difference can completely change interest, often dropping a coin from hundreds of dollars back to its basic value. Conversely, even slightly overlooked coins with natural toning or a small, unremarkable blemish can outperform expectations if they retain originality and sharp strike features. This is where those quiet wealth discoveries really happen, right in drawers, jars, and collections that people have had for decades without realizing their potential. So, what's the takeaway? The 1984 no mint mark penny isn't just a piece of pocket change. For those who understand the nuances, composition, condition, die variations, and originality, it represents a rare opportunity to uncover hidden financial potential. Knowledge, attention to detail, and patience are far more valuable than rushing to sell the first coin you find. And remember, every coin has a story. Some of the highest value examples were only discovered by owners who knew exactly what to look for and were willing to wait for the right buyer. If you have jars of pennies at home, take a closer look at the dates and the condition. You might just uncover a coin that surprises even experienced collectors. And if you want to continue this journey, check out our next video on the rare 1983 double-die Lincoln penny. It's another example of quiet wealth waiting to be discovered, because in coin collecting, knowledge and patience will always matter far more than speed. Did you know that a simple penny from 1985 could be hiding something most collectors completely overlook? Not just any penny. We're talking about the 1985 Abraham Lincoln cent with no mint mark. While most are just everyday coins, a few verified examples have quietly sold for prices that catch even seasoned collectors off guard. Imagine holding a coin you've seen in your spare change and realizing it has hidden financial potential. Today, we're going to break down why this particular date still grabs attention, what sets certain examples apart, and how understanding these details could uncover life-changing sale results for select pennies. The 1985 Lincoln cent comes from a period when millions of pennies were struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Most bear a D for Denver, but some have no mint mark at all, signaling they came from Philadelphia. While the majority are ordinary circulation coins, collectors are drawn to subtle differences in strike quality, planchet condition, and production quirks. This is where many people get confused. At first glance, a 1985 penny looks just like every other Lincoln cent from the mid-1980s. But certain no mint mark examples appear in exceptional condition or with minor production varieties. That's why experienced collectors still keep a close eye on this date. They know that small details can completely change interest. Most 1985 cents are made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, though some early 1980s coins were experimenting with slightly different compositions. The absence of a mint mark doesn't automatically make a coin rare, but combined with sharp detail, brilliant surfaces or production anomalies. It can. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: the alignment of the strike, the crispness of Lincoln's features, and even tiny planchet imperfections can turn an ordinary coin into a sought-after example. This difference can completely change interest. Circulated pennies with minor wear are typically worth face value. But carefully preserved, uncirculated, or certified no-mint mark examples can command hundreds of dollars in the right market. Even small scratches or cleaning mistakes drastically reduce value, which is why patient collectors focus on condition more than rarity alone. For everyday 1985 pennies, the value is usually just a few cents. But for select, well-preserved no-mint mark examples, especially those graded by professional services, the potential climbs. Verified auction results show life-changing sale results for select examples, highlighting the quiet wealth discovery that careful research can reveal. Many coin owners unknowingly reduce a penny's value by polishing, cleaning, or handling it improperly. This is where many people get confused. Even minor scratches or chemical residues can turn a potentially valuable coin into one that sells for little more than face value. Learning how to identify and protect these coins is a key part of uncovering hidden financial potential. Sometimes, patient sellers discover unexpected income simply by sorting through long-forgotten jars of change. A 1985 no-mint mark penny in exceptional condition might sit unnoticed for decades, only to emerge as a prized collectible. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: coins with perfect edges, vibrant color, and minimal circulation marks are the ones most likely to attract serious buyers. So before you sweep your old pennies into a jar or pass them off as everyday change, take a closer look. You might be holding a hidden gem with quiet financial potential. And if you want to keep exploring, check out our next video on rare Lincoln cents. You'll see how knowledge and patience consistently outweigh speed when it comes to uncovering value in everyday coins. Have you ever held a penny in your hand and wondered if it could be worth far more than its face value? Today, we're looking at the 1986 Abraham Lincoln penny, specifically the rare examples with no mint mark. Verified sales have shown that certain specimens can command unusually high prices in the collector market. While not every penny will break records, some owners have discovered quiet financial potential hiding in their coin jars. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, so stay with me, because a small detail can completely change interest in your coin. The 1986 penny was struck during a fascinating period in American coinage. The Lincoln cent, of course, has been in continuous production since 1909, but the mid-1980s saw subtle changes that collectors now track closely. Most 1986 pennies are common, but a few no-mint mark examples have drawn attention for their rarity. These coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, where the P mark was sometimes omitted. That tiny omission, almost invisible at first glance, is what makes collectors take notice. This is where many people get confused. Just because a penny has no mint mark doesn't automatically make it valuable. The key is condition, strike quality, and whether it exhibits known varieties. Collectors and buyers focus on these pennies because they are unusual in a series dominated by Denver D and Philadelphia P mint marks. For some owners, spotting a near-perfect no-mint mark penny has led to life-changing sale results for select examples. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. The 1986 Lincoln penny is primarily copper-plated zinc, weighing just 2.5 grams. The no-mint mark examples from Philadelphia were part of a transitional production batch. While the majority of coins are ordinary, some show subtle differences in strike depth or luster that experts track closely. These differences can completely change interest in a single penny compared to thousands of others in circulation. So, what makes a 1986 no-mint mark penny stand out? Condition is everything. Circulated coins are generally worth only a few cents above face value. But coins with sharp details, minimal scratches, and strong luster can draw collector bids. This is where many people get confused. Even a slight imperfection, like a scratch or discoloration, can significantly reduce potential value. On the flip side, a well-preserved example can reveal hidden financial potential that surprises longtime owners. Let's be clear about expectations. Most circulated 1986 no-mint mark pennies sell for just a few dollars, but certified, high-grade examples have sold for hundreds, and in extremely rare cases, life-changing sale results have occurred. Patience is key. Coins that sit in collections or estates for decades can suddenly surface and create a quiet wealth discovery for their owners. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Cleaning your penny can destroy value. Many owners unknowingly reduce their coin's appeal by polishing or using harsh chemicals. Another common mistake is not checking the edges and strike closely. Tiny differences that are invisible to the untrained that can completely change interest in a coin. Some of the most impressive discoveries come from people who simply take their time. By carefully inspecting coins, learning the market, and sometimes seeking professional grading, sellers uncover hidden financial potential that casual collectors often overlook. Even a single penny in excellent condition can surprise you with its market appeal. Knowledge and patience here are far more valuable than speed. Before you finish this video, take a moment to check your own pennies. Look for small details, no mint mark, sharp strike, and brilliant luster. If this sparked your curiosity, there are more penny varieties worth exploring, each with their own quiet wealth discovery potential. Remember, it's knowledge and patience, not rushing, that uncover true coin value. You might have a penny in your home right now that looks completely ordinary, but the date 1960, combined with no mint mark, is a detail that has quietly surprised collectors for decades. Some verified examples of the 1960 Abraham Lincoln penny with no mint mark have sold for unusually high prices, not because they're common, but because very specific versions of this coin are actively watched by serious buyers. And this is exactly where many people get confused, because most 1960 pennies are worth only a small amount, while a few have unlocked hidden financial potential for patient owners. So before you dismiss that old jar of change, let's walk through why this penny still matters today and what separates everyday examples from coins capable of quiet wealth discovery. The year 1960 sits at an important moment in American coin history. The U.S. Mint was producing massive numbers of pennies to meet circulation demand during a growing post-war economy. The no-mint mark version was struck in Philadelphia, which at the time did not place a mint mark on cents. Millions were made, which is why most are still considered common. But here's the detail collectors quietly watch. 1960 pennies were struck in two different design styles, and that difference can completely change collector interests. That in 1960. The Lincoln penny exists with two distinct date styles, small date and large date. At first glance, the difference is subtle, but collectors spot it immediately. The small date version has a thinner, more delicate 1960, with the zero appearing almost oval shaped. The large date has bolder numbers and a rounder zero. This is where many people get confused, because value depends not just on the date and mint mark, but which date style you have. Most circulated 1960 no mint mark pennies, even small date versions, trade for modest amounts, often just a few cents to a couple of dollars, but uncirculated examples, especially small date coins with strong original luster, can move into higher collector interest, and certified examples graded them as 66 or higher are where prices start to separate dramatically. Some verified sales for top condition small date, no mint mark pennies have reached hundreds to over $1,000, depending on appeal and certification. These aren't everyday results, but they are real, documented outcomes for select examples. This difference can completely change interest, because condition is everything. A coin with no scratches, full mint luster, sharp lettering, and clean fields is viewed very differently than one that's been handled or cleaned, and that leads to one of the biggest mistakes owners make. Cleaning a penny, even gently, can destroy its collector value. Collectors want original surfaces, even if they're slightly toned. Cleaning removes metal, dulls luster, and leaves hairline scratches that graders see instantly. Another mistake is assuming all 1960 pennies are identical. Date style, strike quality, and preservation matter more than age alone. Patience is often what separates disappointment from unexpected income. Here's another detail collectors quietly watch. Some 1960 pennies were struck on different metal planchets during testing in production anomalies. These off-metal or error strikes are rare, but when confirmed, they can generate serious interest and life-changing sale results for select examples. Most people never realize they have something unusual, because errors don't always look dramatic. That's why careful inspection, weighing the coin, and professional authentication can make a difference. So what should you do if you find a 1960 no mint mark penny? First, don't clean it. Second, check the date style closely. Third, evaluate condition under good lighting. If it appears uncirculated or unusual, consider having it reviewed or certified before selling. This is how quiet wealth discovery happens, not through rushing, but through knowledge and patience. Before you move on, take a few minutes to check your own penny collection. That ordinary-looking 1960 cent could hold hidden financial potential if the details line up. And if you want to go deeper, watch the next video on another Lincoln penny date collectors are actively watching right now. Because in coin collecting, the people who benefit most aren't the fastest sellers, they're the most informed ones. A 1961 Abraham Lincoln penny with no mint mark looks ordinary. Millions were made. Most people spend them without a second thought, but a small number of verified examples have sold for prices that stop collectors cold, not because of hype, but because of very specific details most owners never check. And that's exactly why this coin keeps getting searched today. That if you've ever wondered whether an old penny jar might be hiding quiet financial potential, stay with me, because this date is where many people get confused. The year is 1961. John F. Kennedy is president. The space race is accelerating, and the U.S. Mint is producing enormous quantities of Lincoln cents to keep up with everyday commerce. The 1961 penny with no mint mark was struck in Philadelphia, and more than 750 million were made. On the surface, that sounds like a recipe for a coin with little value, but collectors don't judge coins by mintage numbers alone. They judge them by condition, surface quality, strike strength, and scarcity at the top levels. And this is where the story changes. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. The 1961 no mint mark Lincoln cent is part of the pre-1982 copper era, meaning it's made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. That alone makes it more desirable than modern zinc cents for many collectors, but copper value isn't what creates serious interest. What matters is how well the coin survived, and most of them didn't. These pennies circulated heavily. They were stacked in bank bags, rolled by machines, dropped into cash registers, and handled daily. As a result, finding one with original mint luster, sharp strike, and no contact marks is far harder than most people expect. This difference can completely change interests in circulated condition. Most 1961 no mint mark pennies are modestly valued. Worn examples typically trade for just a few cents over face value, sometimes slightly more if the copper market is strong. Even lightly circulated coins may only bring a small premium. This is where many people give up, and where patient sellers keep looking, because once you move into uncirculated territory, values begin to separate fast. Uncirculated 1961 pennies are graded on a scale from MS-60 to MS-70. And here's what most people don't realize: that a coin graded MS-63 might be common, that a coin graded MS-65 is noticeably scarcer. But at MS-67 and higher, the population drops dramatically. Certified examples in these top grades, especially those labeled red, meaning they retain full original copper color, have sold for hundreds to several $1,000s at major auctions. Not because the date is rare, but because perfection is, and yes, a handful of exceptional sales have produced life-changing sale results for select examples. The kind of quiet wealth discovery that only happens when condition meets demand. Now let's talk about varieties and errors, because this is where hidden financial potential sometimes appears. While the 1961 no mint mark penny doesn't have a famous double die like the 1955, there are recognized minor double die obverse, subtle hub doubling, and occasional die cracks, off-center strikes, and planchet errors. Most people miss these entirely. Here's the key: minor doubling won't always bring huge premiums, but clearly documented, certified errors absolutely can. Collectors pay for verification, not guesses. This is where many people get confused. They see something unusual and assume it's valuable, or worse, clean the coin trying to improve it. And that leads to one of the biggest value killers. Cleaning a coin, even gently, can destroy its collector appeal. Polishing removes original surfaces, harsh chemicals strip luster, even wiping a coin can leave hairline scratches visible under magnification. Once that happens, grading services will label the coin as cleaned, and the value can drop dramatically. Ironically, untouched coins that look slightly dull often outperform shiny cleaned ones in the marketplace. Collectors want originality. Another mistake owners make is selling too fast. Some sellers dump rolls or collections without checking dates, mint marks, or condition. Others sell raw coins without understanding whether certification could matter. And while grading isn't right for every coin, top condition 1961 pennies are a different story. Patient sellers who take time to evaluate, compare auction records, and consult professionals sometimes uncover unexpected income where they least expected it. Not overnight, not guaranteed. But real.so, how do you check your own 1961 pennies? Start with the basics. Look for no mint mark beneath the date. That confirms. Philadelphia. Check the color. Full red surfaces matter at higher grades. Examine Lincoln's cheek and jawline for marks. Look at the wheatless reverse for strong lettering in clean fields. And most importantly, don't assume value based on age alone. Condition is everything. Before we wrap up, remember this: most 1961 pennies are common, that a small percentage are collectible, and an even smaller number carry that hidden financial potential people talk about. The difference isn't luck, it's knowledge and patience. That if you've got a jar of old pennies, it may be worth slowing down and looking closer. You don't need to rush. You don't need to gamble. You just need to know what collectors quietly watch for. And if you want to go deeper, there's another penny date you should absolutely check next. One that surprises people even more than this one. Because in coin collecting, speed rarely pays, but understanding often does. If you have a jar of old pennies, especially ones from the early 1960s, this is a date you'll want to hear about carefully. Because while most 1962 Lincoln pennies are only worth a cent or two, a very small number, verified, documented examples, have sold for unusually high prices, sometimes creating what collectors call a quiet wealth discovery. And the reason isn't obvious at first glance. Today, we're taking a close look at the 1962 Abraham Lincoln penny with no mint mark, what it really is, why collectors still watch this date closely, and the specific details that separate common pocket change from coins with hidden financial potential. Stay with me, because this is where many people get confused, and where value is often missed. The year 1962 sits right in the middle of a fascinating era for U.S. coinage. These pennies were struck during a time when copper still made up 95% of the coin. That alone makes them different from modern cents. There's no zinc core, no copper plating, just solid copper alloy, which already gives them baseline interest among collectors and metal-focused buyers. Now, when a penny has no mint mark, it means it was struck in Philadelphia. In 1962, Philadelphia produced hundreds of millions of these coins. Because of that, most examples are extremely common, but And this is critical. High mintage does not mean high-value examples don't exist. This is where collectors quietly pay attention. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Condition: most 1962 pennies were heavily circulated. They were used daily, stored loosely, and rarely protected. Finding one today that still has full original mint luster, sharp strike detail, and no major contact marks is far less common than people expect. This difference can completely change interest. A worn example might sell for 1 to 5 cents. A lightly circulated one could bring 25 to 75 cents. But a truly pristine example, especially one professionally graded, can move into the hundreds of dollars range, and in select, documented cases, top-grade certified examples have sold for 4 figures, producing life-changing sale results for a very small number of patient owners. Now let's talk about varieties, because this is where many people get confused. The standard 1962 no mint mark penny is common, but collectors also search for subtle differences, including die varieties, strike anomalies, and surface characteristics that indicate a special minting circumstance. Some examples show strong doubling, especially in the date or lettering. Others show unusual die polish lines or strike pressure variations. These aren't dramatic errors you'd spot instantly, and that's why many are overlooked. Here's the key point. Collectors don't pay for age alone. They pay for uniqueness plus condition. Another important factor is authentication. Many people unknowingly reduce their coin's value by cleaning it. Even gentle rubbing can permanently damage the surface and destroy collector interest. This is one of the biggest mistakes owners make. A cleaned penny might look shinier, but to a collector, it's worth less. Sometimes dramatically less. Certified examples graded by major services like PCGS or NGC command far more trust and far higher prices than raw coins. Even if they look similar, patience matters here. Some sellers rush coins to market without verification. Others take the time to research, authenticate, and wait for the right buyer. And those are often the people who uncover unexpected income. So what should you realistically expect? Most 1962 no mint mark pennies will never be rare. That's the honest truth. But if you find one that is uncirculated, free from cleaning or damage, strongly struck, or shows a legitimate variety, you may be holding something with hidden financial potential that most people overlook. And this is why collectors still focus on this date more than 60 years later. Before you dismiss your own pennies, take a closer look. Check the surfaces, look for luster, compare details. And if something seems different, don't rush. Knowledge and patience matter far more than speed in this hobby. If you'd like to see another penny date that has surprised owners with quiet wealth discovery, there's a video waiting for you next. And remember, the most valuable finds are often the ones that were almost ignored. Most people see a 1963 penny and assume it's ordinary. But what if one small detail, or the absence of one, quietly changes everything? Today, we're talking about the 1963 Abraham Lincoln penny with no mint mark. And while most are worth just a few cents, verified examples with the right characteristics have sold for unusually high prices, catching even experienced collectors off guard. Not every coin qualifies, but the ones that do can reveal hidden financial potential in places few people Expect that SO before you dismiss that old penny jar. Stay with me, because this is where many people get confused. To understand why the 1963 no mint mark penny still draws attention, we need to step back into its era. In 1963, the United States was producing pennies in enormous numbers, the country was growing, coin demand was high, and the Philadelphia Mint, which used no mint mark at all, struck billions of Lincoln cents that year. On the surface, that sounds like a recipe for low value, but collectors don't just chase rarity, they chase specific traits, conditions, and anomalies that most people never look for. And this difference can completely change interests. Here's something many owners don't realize, that in 1963 penny with no mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. These coins were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a composition that would disappear just a couple of decades later. That copper content alone gives the coin a baseline value, but that's not what creates serious collector demand. What collectors quietly watch are condition, strike quality, and subtle variations, and this is where things start to separate. Most circulated 1963 pennies are worth just a few cents over face value. They've been handled, scratched, discolored, and worn down over decades of use. But when you move into high-grade, uncirculated examples, the story changes. Coins that retain their original luster, sharp lettering, and clean surfaces can jump dramatically in value, especially when they've been professionally certified. And here's the detail collectors quietly watch. Some 1963 no mint mark pennies show exceptional strike quality, meaning the details on Lincoln's hair, jawline, and coat are unusually sharp. Others fall into the category of red copper designation, where the coin retains nearly all of its original reddish color. These coins are rare, not because they weren't made, but because time hasn't been kind to most of them when examples like this appear. At auction, select coins have produced life-changing sale results, surprising even longtime collectors. Not common, not guaranteed, but absolutely real. This is where many people make costly mistakes. Cleaning a penny, even gently, can destroy collector value instantly. Polishing removes original surfaces that experts look for. Another mistake is improper storage. Exposure to air, moisture, and certain plastics can permanently dull the coin's surface, quietly draining its appeal. And perhaps the biggest mistake of all, assuming a coin isn't worth checking because there were too many made. That assumption has cost people far more than they realized. Let's talk realistic value ranges. That a circulated 1963 no mint mark penny may sell for just a few cents to $1. A clean, uncirculated example can move into the tens of dollars. But professionally graded coins in top condition, especially those with strong red coloration and sharp strikes, have sold for hundreds, and in rare cases, much more. This isn't fast money. It's quiet wealth discovery, the kind that rewards patience, knowledge, and timing. Some of the most successful sellers didn't rush. They stored their coins properly, they waited for the right market, and they verified authenticity before selling. In several documented cases, people discovered unexpected income simply by taking a second look at coins they already owned. And this difference can completely change how collectors see your coin. Before we wrap up, here's what matters most. Not every 1963 penny is valuable, but every one is worth checking carefully. Look for no Mint mark, check condition. Avoid cleaning. And if something looks unusually sharp or well-preserved, consider professional evaluation. Knowledge and patience matter more than speed in this hobby. If you enjoyed this breakdown, there's another video waiting that covers other Lincoln pennies that have quietly surprised owners over the years. Because sometimes, the smallest coins hold the biggest questions and the most unexpected potential. What if a penny you've seen your entire life, one that looks completely ordinary, has documented examples that sold for unusually high prices, not because of hype, but because of very specific details most people never check? Today, we're talking about the 1964 Abraham Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin many Americans still have tucked away in jars, drawers, and old collections. And while most are common, a small number of verified examples have achieved life-changing sale results for select owners, not guarantees. Not myths, but real outcomes tied to condition, composition, and overlooked details. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why collectors still quietly watch this date, and what separates everyday pennies from hidden financial potential. The year 1964 sits at a unique crossroads in American coin history. The country was in transition. Silver was about to be removed from circulating coinage. The U.S. Mint was producing coins at massive scale to meet public demand. And the Lincoln cent, already a workhorse of daily commerce, was being struck in staggering numbers. The 1964 Lincoln penny with no mint mark was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not use mint marks at that time. Because of the volume struck, many people assume this penny can't possibly be valuable. This is where many people get confused. High mintage does not automatically mean low value, especially when condition, errors, and collector behavior enter the picture. SOY. Do collectors still focus on this date? First, 1964 pennies are part of the pre-1982 copper era. They are composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, making them heavier and more durable than modern zinc cents. Collectors value copper era cents for both historical and material reasons. And 1964 represents one of the final years before massive changes reshaped U.S. coinage. Second, this date is widely owned but rarely examined carefully. That combination, common ownership and low scrutiny, creates the perfect conditions for quiet wealth discovery. Now let's talk about the details that truly matter. A 1964 penny with no mint mark should weigh approximately 3.11 grams. Any noticeable deviation can raise questions worth investigating. But weight alone isn't enough. Collectors closely examine strike sharpness, luster, color classification, die characteristics, surface preservation. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Condition matters more than age. A heavily circulated 1964 penny may only be worth a few cents above face value. But a sharply struck example with original red luster, minimal contact marks, and strong eye appeal is a completely different story. Let's talk about value ranges. Realistically and responsibly, most circulated 1964 pennies are common. No hype there, but in uncirculated condition, values begin to rise steadily. Mint state examples graded MS-65 or higher by professional grading services have sold for hundreds of dollars, and select top population examples, those with exceptional preservation and eye appeal, have achieved four-figure prices at auction. These are not everyday results. They represent the top fraction of surviving coins. The ones that avoided circulation entirely and were preserved with care or luck. This difference can completely change interests. That there's another layer many people miss entirely. Varieties and striking anomalies. While 1964 pennies are not known for a long list of major errors, collectors still look for die cracks, die chips, repunched design elements, weak or strong strike anomalies. Most people never flip their penny under proper lighting or magnification, and because of that, some varieties quietly sit unnoticed for decades. Patience, not speed, is what leads to discovery here. Now, let's talk about mistakes that reduce value. Because this matters more than people realize. Cleaning a coin is one of the fastest ways to destroy collector interest. Even light polishing or abrasive wiping permanently alters the surface. Collectors can spot cleaned coins instantly, and once altered, a coin often loses the majority of its market appeal. Another mistake is improper storage. Copper reacts with moisture, oils, and air. Storing pennies loose in bags, jars, or damp environments can cause spotting, toning, or corrosion that lowers value. This is where many people accidentally erase hidden financial potential without ever knowing it. So how do patient sellers sometimes uncover unexpected income? They slow down. They compare their coin to certified examples. They weigh it accurately, examine it under magnification, and resist the urge to assume it's either worthless or priceless. Some people discover their coin isn't special, and that's okay, but others realize they've been holding something far better preserved than average, and that realization alone can change how a collection is viewed. Here's something else worth understanding. The coin market rewards knowledge and timing, not urgency. Coins like the 1964 no-mint mark penny don't explode in value overnight. But demand for high-grade copper cents has remained steady for decades. Collectors continue to build Lincoln cent sets. Registry competition drives interest in top-grade examples, and auction records quietly reflect what serious buyers are willing to pay without hype, without promises. That's why select examples have produced life-changing sale results. While most remain modest, both realities exist at the same time. So before you dismiss that old penny, before you toss it back into a jar, take a closer look, check the date, confirm the mint mark or lack of one. Look at the color, the strike, and the surface, because quiet wealth discovery doesn't come from rushing. It comes from understanding what you're holding. And if you want to go deeper, watch the next video where we break down another Lincoln penny date collectors quietly compete for. Knowledge lasts longer than luck, and patience often pays more than speed. A 1965 Abraham Lincoln penny with no mint mark looks completely ordinary at first glance. Most people have seen one. Many still have a few tucked away in jars or drawers, but a small number of verified examples have sold for unusually high prices. Not because of hype, and not because every coin is special, but because of very specific details most owners never think to check. And that's where this story gets interesting. Stay with me, because this is where many people get confused and sometimes overlook quiet financial potential hiding in plain sight. The year 1965 sits right in the middle of a major turning point in U.S. coin history. At the time, the country was dealing with a serious coin shortage. Silver was being removed from circulation. People were hoarding coins, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities as fast as possible. To discourage hoarding, the Mint made a quiet but important decision. From 1965 through 1967, mint marks were temporarily removed from U.S. coins. That means a 1965 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is normal, and most were struck in Philadelphia. These pennies are 95% copper, 5% zinc, and tin, weighing about 3.11 grams. On the surface, it sounds like there's nothing special here. But collectors didn't stop paying attention to 1965. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Because of the rushed production environment, quality control wasn't perfect. Dies wore down quickly. New processes were tested. And a very small number of unusual coins slipped through. Most 1965 pennies are worth face value. In circulated condition, they usually sell for 1 to 5 cents. Even bright uncirculated examples typically fall in the $1 to $5 range. Why do some sell for dramatically more? This difference can completely change interest. The first category collectors focus on is special mint set, or SMS, coins. In 1965, the mint did not issue traditional proof coins. Instead, they produced special mint sets with a unique finish, sharper strikes than circulation coins, but not quite proofs. Most people have never seen one loose in change. SMS pennies have squared rims, strong detail, and a satin-like surface that stands out once you know what to look for. Certified 1965 SMS Lincoln cents, especially in high grades, have sold for hundreds of dollars. Exceptional examples, with deep strike quality and pristine surfaces, have reached into the thousands. Not many exist, and fewer still survive in top condition. This is where patience matters more than speed. Next are era coins, and this is where life-changing sale results for select examples sometimes appear. Collectors pay close attention to double dies. A true double die comes from a misaligned die during creation, not damage after the fact. On genuine examples, you may see doubling in the lettering of Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date itself. Verified double die 1965 pennies are rare. When authenticated and certified, they can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on strength and condition. Then there are off-metal strikes. In extremely rare cases, a 1965 penny was struck on the wrong planchet, such as a dime or foreign blank. These errors are dramatic, obvious, and highly sought after. Collectors quietly compete for these pieces, and auction prices can climb into the multiple thousands. But this is where many people get confused. Not every odd-looking coin is valuable. One of the biggest mistakes owners make is confusing damage with mint errors, scratches, flattened edges, discoloration, and post-mint will almost always reduce value. Cleaning a coin, even gently, can permanently destroy collector interest. Another common mistake is assuming age alone creates value. 1965 pennies are not rare by mintage. Over 1 billion were struck. Value comes from specific characteristics. not just the date. Knowledge protects value. Impatience destroys it. Condition is another separating line collectors care deeply about. That a circulated penny with wear on Lincoln's coat and jawline will never compete with a sharply struck example that still has original luster. Certified grading matters at higher levels. Coins authenticated by respected services often sell for significantly more than raw examples because buyers trust what they're getting. This is how patient sellers sometimes experience quiet wealth discovery, not overnight, but through careful evaluation and timing. So, what should you do if you have a 1965 penny with no mint mark? First, look closely under good lighting. Check the lettering for doubling. Examine the rims and surfaces. Weigh the coin if possible. Second, compare it to verified examples, not online guesses. Auction records and certified images matter more than opinions. And finally, resist rushing to sell. The difference between spending 5 minutes and spending 5 days researching can be the difference between face value and meaningful collector interest. The truth is simple. Most 1965 pennies are common, that a few are quietly extraordinary, and the people who benefit are usually the ones who slow down and learn what others skip past. That if you enjoy uncovering hidden financial potential in everyday coins, there's another penny video you'll want to watch next, especially if you have older change sitting around. Check your coins carefully, stay patient, and remember, knowledge almost always pays better than speed.